Hello. If you're here right now, it means you're on the right path. Because this is not just another YouTube video. This is not noise. And this is not entertainment made to be forgotten. What you are about to hear is a story. A story about a person who didn't just build a company, but changed the way the entire planet thinks, works, and communicates. This is the experience of someone who never chased money alone. Someone who looked deeper at the core of possibilities, at the core of what technology could become if it was built to serve people, not just profit. This is a story about vision, about failure, about obsession, and about believing that the world can be redesigned and improved. So take a moment, clear your mind, and listen carefully. Because if you found this video, you found exactly what you were looking for. This video is not only here to teach you something that can change your life. It's here to show you that every great victory is built on dozens of small failures. Failures that slowly transform into strength, and strength that eventually leads to achievement. But while you listen, something else is happening. You are learning English, naturally. You are expanding your vocabulary. You are feeling the rhythm of sentences, the flow of intonation, the way meaning is carried through sound. This is not memorization. This is input. Just like a child doesn't know a language at first, but hears it every day, from parents, from the world around them, and one day speaks their first words, then their first sentences, and eventually expresses their own thoughts and vision. That is the purpose of this channel, to guide you toward clarity, toward positivity, toward growth, and toward your own voice, a voice that can become light in a complex and demanding world. Now take a moment. Everything you've just heard is more than a story. It's a reminder that greatness is never born from comfort. That vision often looks like madness until it changes the world. If you're still listening, something has already changed inside you. A seed has been planted, an idea that growth comes from obsession, that failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of it, and that the people who reshape the future are the ones who see possibilities where others see limits. From this moment on, you won't see the world the same way, because once an idea takes root, it begins to grow, quietly, patiently, until one day it creates results. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think, question, or imagine more, then don't let it end here. Subscribe to this channel, not for notifications, not for algorithms, but because you've found a place where ideas matter, where inspiration, motivation, and knowledge come together. And those who carry all three always find their way to where they're meant to be. Stay curious, stay driven, and remember, the future is built by those who dare to see it first. Apple, a story that changed us. You know, when people talk about Apple today, they usually talk about products. They talk about the iPhone, the MacBook, the logo, the price. But that is not the real story. The real story of Apple is deeper, it is quieter, and it is more human. Apple is not only a technology company, it is a company that changed how people feel about technology. Before Apple, technology was cold. Computers were difficult. They were made for experts, not for normal people. In the 1970s, computers belonged to big companies, universities, and governments. They were scary. You had to learn their language. People didn't feel comfortable with computers. They felt small next to them. And then Apple appeared. Not loudly, not perfectly, but differently. Apple started with a simple idea. What if technology could feel friendly? Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak were very different people. Wozniak loved engineering. He loved building things because it made him happy. Jobs was different. He cared about meaning, about experience, about how things made people feel. Together, they created something new. They didn't want to build just another machine. They wanted to build something personal. The first Apple computers were not the strongest. They were not the fastest. But they were welcoming. For the first time, a computer didn't feel like it was testing you. It didn't make you feel stupid. It felt like it was waiting for you. This was very important. Apple understood something early. Most people don't hate technology. They hate feeling confused. So Apple tried to remove fear. The Macintosh was a big moment. It had icons, windows, fonts. You didn't need to understand code. You could just look and click. This changed everything. People started to trust technology. But inside Apple, life was not easy. Steve Jobs was very demanding. He wanted things to be perfect. Sometimes he pushed people too hard. Many people were tired. Some were angry. Some left. But something strong was growing inside Apple. Apple believed in control. It wanted to control the hardware, the software, the design, even the box. Other companies said this was a mistake. They wanted open systems, cheap computers, more sales. Apple chose a harder path. It chose quality over quantity, meaning over money. For a short time, this worked well. Then problems started. Apple computers were more expensive. They worked only with Apple systems. The world wanted cheaper and easier options. Slowly, Apple started to lose its place. Inside the company, there were fights, different ideas, different directions. In the end, Steve Jobs was pushed out of Apple. Imagine that. The man who helped create the company was no longer welcome there. Without Jobs, Apple changed. Not immediately, but slowly. There were too many products, too many ideas, no clear direction. Apple was still alive, but it was no longer inspiring. It reacted to the market instead of leading it. By the mid-1990s, Apple was very close to failure. Many people thought it was the end. But then something unexpected happened. Apple bought a small company called Next, and Steve Jobs came back. This time, he was different. He had failed. He had learned. He was calmer but clearer. He didn't try to fix everything. He didn't try to please everyone. He focused. He asked one simple question again and again. What really matters? Jobs removed many products. He simplified everything. People inside Apple were shocked. But this saved the company. The iMac was one of the first results. It was colorful, simple, confident. People noticed Apple again, not because it was cheap, but because it felt honest. Apple stopped chasing trends. It stopped explaining itself. It started trusting its own ideas, and people trusted it too. Something important was happening. Technology was no longer just a tool. It was becoming part of everyday life. Apple helped make this change. It made technology feel natural, human, easy to touch and understand. People didn't just use Apple products. They lived with them. Music changed. Phones changed. Computers changed. Apple didn't invent everything, but it made things feel simple. And simplicity is powerful. Apple showed the world that technology does not have to be cold. It can be warm. It can be human. So, Apple was back. Not strong yet. Not powerful, but alive. Steve Jobs returned to a company that almost didn't recognize itself. Apple had survived, but it had lost confidence. Jobs understood one thing very clearly. Apple did not need more ideas. It needed belief. Belief in itself. At that time, music was changing. People still bought CDs. Songs were physical. You had shelves, boxes, collections. But Jobs saw the future differently. He believed music should be simple, easy to carry, easy to find, easy to love. That belief became the iPod. The iPod was not the first music player. Many companies made similar devices. But Apple asked a different question. How does this feel in your hand? How fast can you find a song? How easy is it to enjoy music? The answer was the click wheel, the white design, the clear screen, and one sentence that changed everything. 1,000 songs in your pocket. People understood it instantly. Apple didn't sell technology, it sold freedom. Then came iTunes. This was another important moment. The music industry was afraid. People were downloading music illegally. Artists were angry. Companies were confused. Apple made a deal no one else could. It gave people an easy, legal way to buy music. One song at a time. Not an album. Not a box. Just one click. This changed how people valued music. Apple didn't save the music industry because it was kind. It saved it because it understood people. And people trusted Apple. That trust grew. Then came the biggest risk of all, the phone. At that time, phones had buttons, small screens, menus inside menus. Companies competed with features, more buttons, more options. Jobs hated this. He believed phones were too complicated, too ugly, too unfriendly. So Apple did something dangerous. It decided to reinvent the phone, not improve it, rebuild it. The iPhone was announced in 2007. Many people didn't understand it. No keyboard, only a screen, touch. Experts laughed. Competitors were calm. They thought Apple were crazy. But the iPhone was not just a phone. It was a new way to touch technology. Swipe, tap, pinch. These actions felt natural, human. For the first time, technology learned human language, and people felt it immediately. The phone stopped being a tool. It became an extension of the self. Photos, messages, music, maps, memories, everything moved into one device. And relationships changed. People were closer and further away at the same time. Apple didn't plan all of this, but it opened the door. Then came the App Store. This was a quiet revolution. Apple allowed other people to build inside its world, but on Apple's rules. Some people called this control. Others called it protection. Apple believed one thing. If you protect quality, people will trust you, and they did. Millions of apps, millions of creators, one ecosystem. Apple didn't just sell devices anymore, it built a digital world. But this world had a price. Apple's control became stronger. The system was closed, rules were strict. Some developers were angry. Governments started asking questions. But Apple stayed the same. It believed consistency was more important than approval. Inside the company, Steve Jobs was changing too. He was older, calmer, but still intense. Then came the news. Cancer. Jobs talked about death openly. He said death helps us choose what matters. He knew time was limited, so Apple moved faster. iPhone, iPad, MacBooks, simple designs, clear purpose. Jobs didn't want to leave chaos behind. He wanted to leave clarity. In 2011, Steve Jobs died. The world stopped for a moment. People asked one question again and again. Can Apple survive without Steve Jobs? That question was fair, because Apple was not just a company. It was shaped by one mind. After his death, Apple changed, not suddenly, but slowly. It became calmer, more stable, more corporate. Tim Cook was different, less emotional, more operational. Apple grew bigger than ever. More money, more products, more influence. But some people felt something was missing. The risk. the tension, the uncomfortable honesty. Apple today is powerful, successful, careful. It still makes great products. But the world is different now. Technology is everywhere. Phones are no longer magical. Screens are normal. Apple no longer teaches people how to use technology. It teaches them how to live with it. That is a heavier responsibility. Because Apple helped create a world where we are always connected, always online, always reachable. This brought comfort and pressure, connection and loneliness. Apple did not cause all of this, but it shaped it. And maybe this is the true story of Apple, not a perfect company, not a hero, but a company that dared to ask human questions in a technical world. What feels right? What feels simple? What feels human? Apple didn't always answer correctly, but it always tried to answer honestly. And that is why Apple matters. Not because of products, not because of money, but because it changed the relationship between people and technology. And once that relationship changed, humanity changed too. And maybe now we can say it clearly. Apple is not special because it makes phones. Many companies make phones. Apple is not special because it makes computers. Many companies make computers. Apple is special because it makes people feel understood. From the very beginning, Apple never asked, "How powerful can this be?" It asked, "How will this feel in a human hand?" Apple didn't try to impress people. It tried to remove fear. It removed buttons. It removed noise. It removed confusion. And in that empty space, people found comfort. That is why Apple has fans, not just customers. People don't defend Apple because it is perfect. They defend it because it feels personal. An Apple device doesn't shout. It doesn't beg for attention. It waits. It says, "I am here when you need me." Apple built trust by being consistent, by saying no when others said yes, by choosing simplicity when others chose more, and people felt safe inside that choice. Apple didn't promise to make you smarter, or richer, or better. It promised to stay out of your way. And in a world full of noise, that promise feels rare. That is why people line up. That is why they care. That is why they stay. Because Apple is not about technology. It is about the quiet moment when technology disappears and you are left alone with what really matters. And once you feel that moment, you don't forget it. That is Apple. Thank you for staying with us until this moment. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your openness. Today, you didn't just watch a video. You heard something that can stay with you, something that will quietly remind you, again and again, that you always have a choice to become a better version of yourself, a choice to give yourself a chance, even when the whole world refuses to give you one. This is about believing in yourself despite the pain, despite the pressure, despite the falls, the doubts, and the moments when giving up feels easier. Stay with us. This is more than a channel. This is a community of like-minded people, a space for clear minds and open hearts. For those who choose to see opportunities where others see nothing, stay calm, stay aware, stay with us. This was English Time. Take care.